Hello, and welcome to the Passport to Manhood breakout session for the virtual Keystone Conference. My name is Elise Dixon, and I will serve as today's facilitator. So today we're going to have a discussion on race and equity, biased media, personal brand, and the influence of social media on self-esteem. You may have already noticed that you guys are already muted, so you can use the chat box to say hello. If you have any questions you'd like to ask today's panelists, please use the Q&A box and ask those questions during this presentation. There will be a few opportunities for us to actually send out some questions to you in the chat, and you'll have a chance to be entered into the raffle. So same as general session, you'll answer those questions by emailing keystoneclubs with an S at bgca.org. You'll have a chance to win either $100 Visa gift cards, $50 Visa gift cards, or $100 Pizza Hut gift cards. At this time, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Ziggy Asphalt.
Thank you, Elise. Hi, my name is Ziggy Asphalt, and I am a staff member at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and this is the Passport to Manhood breakout session. Everyone is on mute, and we are encouraging the use of the chat box as a way to communicate with your peers today. As Elise mentioned, please use the chat box to talk with your peers. And if you have a question for today's speaker, please put it in there. We'll also be giving away several prizes during this session. To be entered into a raffle to win a prize, watch the chat box for questions posed by our moderators and email your response to keystoneclubs@bgca.org. Please reference Passport to Manhood in your email. I'd now like to introduce Darius, a member of your Keystone Steering Committee, here to welcome our amazing speaker for today's session. Darius?
Tony Weaver Jr. is an award-winning writer and educator creating diverse stories that make young people feel seen and valued. After seeing the impact of media stereotypes had on students in his community, Tony embarked on a journey to create new media narratives that would challenge the status quo. What started as a school project became a national platform that landed him on the TED stage in the presence of world leaders and gained him recognition from likes of Taraji P. Henson, LeBron James, and Lena Waithe. At the age of 25, he is the CEO of Weird Enough Productions, where he developed a program that uses comics and superheroes for literacy and social emotional learning in elementary, middle, and high schools. Through Weird Enough, Tony developed the Uncommons, an award-winning webcomic that engages over 40,000 young people monthly. In 2018, Tony made history as the first comic writer to ever be selected in the Forbes 30 Under 30. He was named a history shaker by Coca-Cola, a global barrier breaker by Marriott International, and awarded the Aspire Award from AT&T. Tony has also worked with brands like Facebook, Instagram, and American Express. By being open and vulnerable about his childhood experiences and telling new stories that uplift the underrepresented voices, Tony hopes to show everyone that as long as you pursue your truth, you are never too weird. You're just weird enough.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay? As you type, your words pop up at the bottom of the screen, so I can see a little bit. So like Darius said, my name is Tony Weaver Jr., and I feel really grateful for the opportunity to be here with you all today, or as close to as here as we can be, given the circumstances, right? The Boys and Girls Club of America is such an amazing organization, and I feel really privileged to have the chance to come and talk to you all today about something that I think is really important. Normally when we have conversations around racial injustice, when we have conversations around entrepreneurship, or even when we have conversations about heroism, a lot of the time people like to talk down and say, here's what you should do this, do this, do this. However, today, I don't have any of those things to say. I am not here with the intention of giving you a one-size-fits-all solution to what's happening in your communities. In fact, I don't even think that I have the solution at all. Instead, I think that the solution lies in all of you all. young people that are in your communities that have a unique perspective on your community that nobody else has. And it's my hope that in sharing my story and how I was able to help my community, you all will be able to develop some solutions of your own as well. And I'm glad one of the questions that just popped up at the bottom was, why do you have a cape? And there will be a Q&A at the end, but thankfully I do answer that question with this story. So as Darius said, I'm the founder of an organization called Weird Enough Productions. And in Weird Enough, what we do is we create really cool, diverse comic books with the idea of helping everybody believe that they have the opportunity to be a hero in their own way. I started Weird Enough when I was a junior in college at Elon University in North Carolina. But I started Weird Enough as a result of an experience that I had during my first year in college. So as a first year student at Elon, as a part of one of my classes, I volunteer at a local elementary school where I mentored a fourth grade student named Nazir. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever participated in these kind of after school mentoring programs, but generally what I was supposed to do was help Nasir with anything that he was dealing with that was curriculum related. So if you're having trouble with math, we're going to talk about addition and subtraction today. If you're having trouble with history, we're going to talk about Squanto today. And I'm going to explain to you why Squanto was important. I was supposed to help them about things that were curriculum related. And we had to go through this really long training before we went into the classroom. And they were like, talk to the kids about what their teachers are talking to them about. So I walked in with my mandate, like, yes, I will be an academic person today. Let's talk about school. But from the moment I sat down, all he wanted to do was talk about cartoons. And I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but if there's anything I love doing, is talking about cartoons. So of course, I'm like, there's this kid sitting in front of me that wants to talk about cartoons. I'm not talking to him about Squanto. Of course, we're going to talk about cartoons. So for that entire semester, every week I'd meet with him and he loved to tell me about all of his favorite cartoons, all of his favorite superheroes, and how when he got older, he wanted to buy his mom a house, how he wanted to be like the heroes that he saw. However, Halloween was coming up, and when I asked him if he was going to be dressing as his favorite hero, he told me, well, I can't because I don't look like them. As a fourth grade Black male, when he had to think about, oh, what hero can I be? What hero can I be? It was really hard for him to think of anybody. And this is in a time that was pre-Black Panther, pre-Spider-Verse. So even though representation still needs to improve, it was even worse at that point in time. It was really hard for him to find somebody to identify with. In fact, he told me that since he couldn't think of a hero to identify with, he was going to dress up as CJ from Grand Theft Auto. Because as a Black male, when you have to think about, hey, who am I going to be? Who looks like me? For him in the fourth grade, the first person that popped into mind for him was the main character of a video game where you steal things, kill people, and run away from police. And that experience with Nazir had a really profound impact on me because when I looked at him, it made me think about myself. In middle school, growing up in Atlanta as a weird kid, trying my hardest to fit in, but struggling so much to identify with people. And when I looked to media to try to find people that looked like me that I could identify with, I couldn't find anybody. I think that very often we talk about what it means to be unique. And I think that as a young person, a lot of adults get in your face and are like, you're unique, you're different, you're special, you're important. But even though we like to pose all of those things as positive things, sometimes being the odd person out can be really alienating. For me, even though I felt unique, it didn't feel like it was a good thing. I was a weird kid. I wanted nothing more than to be like everybody else, but instead I felt like nobody was like me. And when you experience that, it can make you doubt your own value. It can make you doubt what you're capable of bringing to the world. And for me, that doubt grew to such a point that I didn't feel like who I was as a person had value. I didn't feel like my existence was important. So when I was in middle school, I attempted to end my own life because I didn't think that I was important. I thought that I was a liability to the people around me. And I thought that the way that I looked at the world wasn't an asset. I thought that it was a drawback. I thought it was a con, not a pro. After I got out of that dark place, the thing that helped bring me out was comics, manga, anime, superheroes. Watching these engaging stories of these protagonists that felt profoundly unequipped to accomplish what they wanted in the world, decide that they were going to band together, believe in themselves, and find friends to help them accomplish even the most wildest dreams, was a thing that helped me get up every morning when I didn't love what I saw when I looked in the mirror. And it was with that idea when I met Nazir that I said, maybe the thing that helped me could also help you. And it was in trying to help Nazir solve his individual problem that I started Weird Enough Productions. Because there are a lot of kids around the world that feel just like Nazir does, that feel like they can't be a hero, they can't find people that they identify with. And they also feel like I felt when I was younger, when I didn't feel like my existence had value. In starting Weird Enough, I was able to take my own personal experience and use it as a way to help people that were also having the same problem. And I know we talk a lot about entrepreneurship. I know we talk a lot about media representation, but the underpinning thing in all of that, I think, is the ability for our unique lived experiences to be a thing that helps the world change for the better. I think that my experience is one that's really common. There are a lot of kids that feel weird, but I think that if all of you sit and think about it, there are experiences that you've had where you felt like you were really uncomfortable, where you haven't felt like you were your best, where you thought to yourself, the way that I feel right now, I don't want anybody to have to feel that way again. And I think that it's in those feelings that we have the opportunity to use our lived experiences in a way that can improve the world for the better, in a way that can positively impact our communities, in a way that can have a direct impact on our peers, and that also can have a direct impact on ourselves. Very often when we talk about entrepreneurship, or even when we talk about the idea of changing the world or being a hero, very often young people are excluded from that conversation. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody where, like, if you're an artist, they might look at your work and go, oh, wow, you'll make a great illustrator one day. Or if you give a presentation and your teacher will say, wow, you'll make a great speaker one day. At some point, just by virtue of you being young, it's very easy for you to feel like it's not possible for you to do something right now. Like you have to wait until later, until you get validation from somebody else in order to move forward and pursue what you want to pursue. But you right now, just by virtue of having a cell phone and an internet connection, have the ability to impact the world in a way that young people of previous generations never have. And I wanted to share my story in an effort to encourage you all to lean into your lived experiences. Recognize that the perspective that you have is a perspective that no one else on earth has. And that by leveraging that perspective, you can give the world something that the world just wouldn't have if you didn't speak up and bring it to existence. So I'm going to stop there because I'm really excited for the Q&A. But the overall thing that I want you to understand is that by virtue of being who you are, you're a hero already. The only question is, are you going to bring it into the world or are you going to keep it to yourself? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marlon. I'm from the Boys and Girls Club of Naval Submarine Base Kings Bay.
Hi, my name is Darius, and I am from the Boys and Girls Club of Collin County.
We're members of the National Keystone Conference Steering Committee, and we're excited to serve as your interviewers today, Tony. Thanks for being with us. I know many may be wondering about the topic of racial injustice, especially since it has been impacting our own communities. Tony, we'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Our first question today is, how do we create a space to talk about race and equity in a way that we actually listen instead of listening to rebuttal?
I think that in conversations about racial injustice, what we have to understand is that the only person we can control is ourselves. So when we enter a conversation to speak with somebody, I don't know if the person that I'm speaking with is a person that's actually going to listen to me, or if they're looking for some random fallacy or typo or incorrect thing that I say so that they can hop on that in an attempt to validate their point. I think that people of color, especially Black people in an age of racial injustice, have always kind of shouldered this burden of, how do I explain things in a way that doesn't offend people? How do I explain things in a way that gets people to actually listen to me and stay on my side? But in my opinion, in a context where Black people are literally being killed in the streets, a person whom you have to police your language in order to win over probably isn't the ally that you want in the first place. I think that mental health is really important, and it can be a huge drain on your mental health to argue until you're blue in the face with a person that inherently is dedicated to not understanding your point of view. I think that instead, what it's best to do is have conversations with people that make it easy to have those conversations. If there's really a person that you think needs to learn, point them somewhere else. There are plenty of books, there are plenty of articles. Give them a link and let them read. Don't give them your mental labor. It's not your responsibility. Instead, spend that time taking care of yourself and taking care of your peers. Because what's happening in the world today does have an impact on our mental health and the way that we view ourselves. I think it's more productive to spend that time and that energy making sure that we support our own.
How do you inform teens that biased media exists?
So there was a study done by Stanford University that found that of the students that were polled in the study, over 80% of them lacked what is referred to as digital citizenship skills. So they did this study with thousands of students across various age groups. What they found was over 80% of them could not distinguish between a sponsored post and a real post. So if you come across something in your news feed where they're selling something or they're hyping up a product, 80% of the young people that were polled in this study couldn't tell the difference between when something was just an organic post because someone was excited about a product or because somebody paid to have an ad placed in their feeds. And the idea of that, when I saw that data, I was really surprised because there's nobody that can sniff out an ad like teenagers. Like if something pops up that's a commercial or if it doesn't feel right, generally a teenager's gut feeling is the one that's going to be like, no, I don't. Something about that doesn't read to me. I don't think that's right. Something about that doesn't feel right. So I was really surprised that that they were getting kind of spoofed so much. But I think that the way that we kind of help break out of that is by bringing awareness to the fact that media uses influence to gain money or power. What we have to understand is that nobody creates media just because they feel like creating media. There are some small indie creators that are really interested in creating like unique work and things like that, but they're not the norm. For the most part, media companies, media organizations, people that create all these ads, people that develop these viral TikTok accounts, they are making them with the intention of financial gain. And when you keep that in mind as a media consumer, you'll know these people aren't my friends. They want something from me. And whether that something is my views, my clicks, my engagements, my comments, when you think about it in that mindset, it completely shifts the way that you engage with people online. I think that what it really means is that as young people, your perspective is one of the most important in the world, and it's one of the most valuable in the world. That's why companies spend millions of dollars each year just to get your likes, just to get your shares. You know, there are people that make six figures a year just to sit in an office and figure out, how do we get them to comment? How do we get them to do our TikTok dance trend, right? And on one hand, it's really easy to look at that and say, wow, is there a conspiracy theory to everything that I consume? Is nothing fun anymore? I don't think we should go that far. However, I do think that you should be able to look at yourself and go, wow, my point of view is so important that there are people whose entire job is to get me looking at what they're doing. When you wake up every day with that kind of mindset and understand exactly how important your perspective is and how important your views are, I think that gives you a sense of power that you should really hold on to.
Many of us are stuck home during COVID. We'd love to talk to you about social media, especially during this time where it may be used more for connection. Our first question is, how can teens stay true to their personal brand while using social media?
So I'm totally going to go off script here because I know that the question is how do teens maintain their personal brand? But it's my belief that if you're a person, you're not a brand. You're a teenager. You don't have a brand. You're a person. Be a person. Use social media as an extension of who you are as a person. I think that when we look at circumstances as far as companies, people that have these really booming e-commerce shops that are kind of driven by cult of personality and things like that, it's very easy to go, oh, what's my brand? Especially when you find out that there are influencers that get paid a person's yearly salary for one Instagram post. Like, Kylie Jenner makes more money than I have made in my entire life to post one picture. And that is ridiculous. When you think about that as a young person, it's very easy to go, you know, college isn't going to be cheap. And maybe I won't have to go to college if I make X amount of money. Maybe I should start positioning myself as a brand so that I can build an audience, so that I can become an influencer, or so that I can monetize and make money, so that I can get these brand endorsements, so that I can get signed to ICM like that kid that did the Spider-Man special effects video, right? It's really easy to think like that. And I think that the older you are, it gets a little bit easier to compartmentalize that in a way that's healthy. But when you're a young person, when you're coming into your sense of own and figuring out who you are, it can be very harmful to your mental health to start to measure your success on how many likes and shares you get. Because as anybody that's been on the internet will tell you, the stuff that gets the most shares generally is not the most stuff of substance. Someone can be, for example, I know a person that is 14 years old that has developed a regional network that connects with food banks and grocery stores to get food that's wasted at grocery stores to food banks in order to feed the homeless. She can write a blog post about what she's doing, and I don't think it'll get many shares. Whereas if you share a video of somebody fighting, or if you share a video of somebody cussing somebody out, or something that's conflict-based, you'll get millions of shares. I personally love a good drag. I won't lie about it. I'll pop up, especially in Twitter. If you show up at the end of the fight where all the comments are already there, I'll spend more than a healthy amount of time just watching, just to see what went down. Because that's the kind of internet culture that we've cultivated. But when you build your identity around that, don't you see how that can be a little harmful? In a time when you're supposed to be figuring out, what are my hobbies? What do I like? How do I see the world? What do I enjoy? What makes me happy? Instead, we're thinking about, what do they enjoy? What makes them happy? So that I can go do that and participate in that. And I think that can get really unhealthy. So I don't think you should be thinking about how to align anything with your personal brand, because you're not a brand. If you want a company, do that. And we can talk about company branding all you want. But for you as an individual, be a person first.
So we like to talk about the impact of social media on self-esteem. How does social media impact self-esteem?
So I think that social media is an extension of the real world. When I wasn't around when social media first started, right? But when I started on social media, something that I'd often hear from my parents and from my teachers is, it's just the internet. It's just the internet. It's just the internet. However, what we know now is that what used to be called just the internet is actually a pathway for some people to make millions of dollars without leaving their houses. What was known as just the internet is how some people have met their life partners, their best friends, their creative partners. The internet and social media has become an extension of the world in which we live. And as a result, in the same way that our day-to-day engagements and interactions can have a negative impact on our mental health, social media can as well. Social media has a potential to be even more harmful, because when we're in an environment where we don't have to look at a person face to face, it is really easy to dehumanize them and be a bit more vicious and attack with a bit more vitriol than we would if we were looking at somebody face to face. There are comments that I've seen on people's Instagram pages where I thought, listen, as confident as you are, there is no way you would say those words to that person's face. Not even for fear of fighting them, but there's just no way you can be that mean to a person when you have to look at them as you say their word, as they hear the words that you're saying. So I think that social media can be negative for a person's mental health in part because it allows us to engage with other humans while simultaneously breaking every social contract that we've culturally developed for the sake of sustainability. I also think that it's very easy to compare on social media. even if you say, I'm going to get on and I'm just going to post and go look at the things that I like, even if you don't show up with this mindset of comparison, it's very easy to say, well, I posted the same thing he did. We were literally at the same place. Why did he get more likes on his picture that we posted at the same time? We were in the same place. I don't understand. Or because there are some Instagram accounts that do nothing but post other people's stuff, and you'll sit and go, I put effort into this. I made this. I drew it, or I wrote this, or I filmed this. Why won't anybody look at my thing? And you just reposted something that somebody on Twitter said, and now everybody's looking at what you're saying. Why does that happen? Why do things work out that way? Even if it's not your intention in the beginning, social media as a platform, these large technology companies, they thrive on your usage rates and your engagement rates because that's what allows you to look at advertisements. So they're going to do things that get you on the platform longer. They're going to do things that get you using the platform more. And they essentially want to make it feel like a necessity in your life. And when you look at the financial possibilities and a lot of the other positive rewards that can come from success on social media, as an individual, it's hard to go, well, I'll dive in just to see what happens. But when you do that, what you have to keep in mind is that you're a person first, and that who you are on social media, even though it has the opportunity to augment who you are, it does not determine who you are. So looking at social media as an extension, it is an extension of the world. It does have the ability to impact our day-to-day lives in ways that are massively transformative, but all it's going to do is augment the work that you were already doing on yourself. So lean into your personhood and your humanity first, and look at social media more as like an echo to that, rather than trying to use social media to establish yourself as a person that you're not in the first place. Because when you do that, that's when it gets really harmful for your mental health, because you're putting the keys to your success and to your happiness and to your validation into the hands of somebody else. And the moment you do that, you lost already.
Thank you so much for your thoughts today, Tony. I really appreciate it. You've given us a lot to feel confident about and lots to think about for the weeks ahead. Do you have any final remarks?
I think that what comes to mind for me is to be kind to yourself. We have to be kind to others, but very often we're not kind to ourselves. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. People are quarantined. School is going to be remote, in-person, hybrid. Who knows, man? And I can only think about students that are saying, well, how do I navigate college admissions and going and visiting colleges and figuring out what my next steps are? Is college even worth it right now if I'm going to have to pay full tuition just to do things online? Be kind to yourself, because what you have to navigate right now is something that nobody in the world has had to navigate before. No one's had to do this before. So there are bound to be mistakes. There are bound to be things that you look back on and feel like you could have done more efficiently. But what's most important in this time is making sure that you're kind to yourself day to day so that you can endure and sustain.
Thank you, Tony, for always being such a great partner to the Boys and Girls Club.
Thanks, Tony, Darius, and Marlon for your time today. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it. The winners of the prizes will be notified via email by next week. Thank you to all of our participants of this session as well. The next session will start at 4:15 Eastern. See you then.